And we are live, everybody. Welcome to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight I've got a very special guest. It is Mr. Tommy Hellfire. Now, I've been talking to this gentleman just before we hit the go live button, and this is going to be a fantastic conversation. So, guys, you are in for a treat. But before I bring out Tommy, I just want to take a quick second, a pause for the cause, to thank some of those amazing sponsors that help us keep the lights on up in this bitch. First up is healthvape.com. Now, if you're a smoker or a vapor, healthvape.com is your healthy vaping alternative. All of their products, no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals, and they're vitamin infused. So, guys, check out healthvape.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Next, guys, is sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, then you need to check out Sleefs. They've got armbands, headbands, compression pants, compression shorts, compression socks, boots, mouth guards, and they've even got these dirty boxes. Now, guys, they sent me boxes of these dirty boxes, and I've thrown out all my other boxes. How many times can I say boxes in a couple of sentences? I don't know. But these boxes are pretty amazing. They stay fresh, they stay dry, and when the belt buckle comes undone at the end of the day, Mrs. Austin has something to giggle at. And I'm not talking about anything else, but I'm talking about that design on the front of the dirty boxes. So check out those dirty boxes at sleeves.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD and get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, wherever you are finding us, wherever you are tuning in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, share, like, comment, all that good shit, because the MWA Podcast Network is the place all wrestling fans want to be. We got shows like Killing the Business, hosted by ECW Original, The Kingpin, Angel, Motherfucking Medina, and King Mega. Every Saturday, 10 a.m., which is Friday, 8 p.m. USA Eastern Time. So make sure you tune in for that shit. And guys, check out Knights of the Gimmick Table, hosted by the Dead Presidents and deathmatch icon Cade Lothbrock, live every single Thursday at 10 a.m. Australian time, which is Wednesday, 8 p.m. USA Eastern. I had to catch myself there, but I know my time frames, guys. I know what time it is around the world. But guys, without further ado, I'm going to get into my interview with Mr. Tommy Hellfire. Tommy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
How you doing, mate? I'm a little bit what were those things called? Sleeps? With
Sleeps.
the sleeps with the elephant gimmick at the front.
Yeah.
Boy, you gotta be confident to wear those, don't you? Like Macho Man flaring the lats out, kind of confident. Because if you're like, I don't know, with me, if I was to take off my pants and there was underwear with an elephant on the front, like I'd want to feel like, you know, like I could hang, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit disappointing. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But mate, thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you on. You know, it's interesting, man, because you've had quite a stellar career, man. You know, you broke into professional wrestling back in 2006, and I want to get into your career and everything you've been doing since your debut. But you know, what was it that really sort of, you know, pushed you towards professional wrestling? Like, obviously, I think we're all fans to before getting
Yeah.
into it or whatever. But what was it that made you actually take that first leap and go, you know what, I'm going to go in and enter this world?
See, it was funny, man. Like all through primary school, I loved professional wrestling. So this was like the early 90s, like the new generation wrestling. I was absolutely amazed with it. And I remember one day I took a wrestling magazine, the WWF wrestling magazine, which was probably done by your mate, Vinny R. And it had Mr. Perfect on the front cover. And I remember taking that to school and I was so proud. And some kids made fun of me. And I remember thinking, oh, fuck wrestling. I don't care about wrestling. And then the Attitude Era came. And then all of a sudden wrestling was the coolest thing in the world. But for me, my journey was, I was in a band. I was playing guitar in a band. And, you know, half the people went to jail and the other half went off on their own little way. We're partying like we're Guns N' Roses, but without the success. So when all that happened, I needed something to do. And I had a garage at the back of my house where all my mates would hang out. And we used to do we put on the wrestling and we'll all think, oh yeah, this looks like a bit of fun. So we just start throwing each other around the garage. I was about 22. And I had a friend of mine say, you know, there's a wrestling school just up the road, right? And I was like dumbfounded. Oh my God, how did I not know this? Yeah. So I gave him a call and I showed up for my very first wrestling lesson. Because it was basically from drama in high school, music after high school, and then from there I needed something to do because I have to be doing something and it has to be over the top, it has to be crazy in some way. So I showed up to my first wrestling training session and we thought this is going to be the coolest thing. So all the guys are in the ring, they're training. And when they jumped out of the ring, me and my friend, we jumped in the ring and we just started jumping off the top rope and having all this fun. Like we just thought we were just the coolest things. Anyway, the guy sticks his head. The guy who owned it was a guy named Henry Jones, or his wrestling name is Lobo, and he's a bit of an Australian icon, Lobo.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of Lobo.
Yeah. So me being the ignorant person I was, the dumb shit, I didn't know Lobo. So I was standing there with me and my friend. We're running around the ring, jumping off the top rope, beating each other up. And he goes, oh, guys, come into my office. Come into my office. And he lured us in with this big cheesy smile. And we're like, cool. Yeah, no worries. Yep, sweet. So in the office and he goes, oh, okay, cool. He goes to my friend, how old are you? And he goes, 21. And he goes, how old are you? I said, 22. He goes, oh, so you're old enough to fucking know better. And then he just ripped us apart for like 10, 15 minutes about how he didn't know who the fuck we were and how we shouldn't just be like treating his ring with such disrespect, and basically just cut us back down to size. So much so that my friend didn't come back. So I had to come back the next week. Yeah, I had to come back the next week and I had to sit there and watch for like 2-3 weeks before they let me back in the ring. So that was virtually...
But that's the thing, man. Like he probably would have seen that happen a few times and have to sort of show guys like, hey, man, like this isn't no fucking joke what we're doing here. Like this is like, don't fuck around in here.
Of course.
I think it's to teach that respect.
Yeah, as he absolutely should have. Like I showed up like, you know, like an entitled dickhead thinking, oh yeah, what's the big deal here? You know, so he cut me back down to size and I learned a lesson pretty quickly. That you got to show a little bit of respect to get a little bit of respect in wrestling. So that was virtually how I got started. It wasn't on the best note, but here we are 16 years later.
How long did it was he cool with you after like that next week when he saw you coming back, or was it like weary of this kid?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where it was like, you know, 3 a.m. and we're packing down rings and I'm the only one left. That he thought, oh, I can't be angry with this guy forever.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm angry with this guy, I've got nobody to pack up the ring with me. So I think, you know, like after a little while, he kind of saw that I was, you know, going to put in the hard work and I was going to stick it out. And once he kind of realized that, I think, you know, like, and we caught up the other day, actually. We saw each other at a show and we haven't seen each other in like nearly 10 years. And it was just like, one of those relationships that I think was formed back then and it lasted the test of time. So the thing with wrestling is we don't always have the best starting stories, but consistency and personality and character of people tend to override all that sort of stuff. You know, the good people tend to find the good people and stay.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because a lot of people that I talk to, the trainer and trainee relationship in professional wrestling is such a unique bond. Like, like I talk to a lot of guys, and like even Angel, who's a friend of mine, and he was trained by Johnny Rods, and it's almost like when he talks about Johnny, it's like he's talking about his father to a certain, you know what I mean? Like that same level of respect that you would have for your dad, like he has for this man. And other guys that have been trained by other people, I've seen that same sort of admiration or respect, I think is probably the right term.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I'm at that point now where I'm, like I'm the oldest, I'm like the eldest statesman backstage, and like you don't really appreciate the role that you sort of got backstage. So like it's the guys who train you, but then like once the guys train you and you're in there, that's where you start to form new sort of relationships. So like my relationship backstage with a lot of guys is, obviously I pick the guys who I like, or I pick the guys who I see the potential in, and I'll take the time and I'll actually talk to them and I'll actually back and forward with them over that sort of stuff. You reach out to them, you see how they're going, you take that little bit of interest in them and you help sort of guide them in a way. Because I remember when I was starting there, I didn't really have that guidance like after you train. Like, so you sort of, you learn your bumps, you learn your stuff, and then you're into the big wide world and you're messaging promoters and you're doing this and you're doing all this sort of stuff. You're kind of out there on your own again. Catch and kill basically. So like backstage now, my relationship with the boys is, like you'll see the talent, you'll encourage the talent, you'll call the guys backstage and say, hey, I was watching your match, I want to talk about this, like to take that next level, to take that next step. Like, you know how to bump, you know how to like look after your opponent, but to take that next step, here's what you need to do, or here's what I see you need to do. And it's the guys who are more receptive to that and respectful of that. They're the ones that sort of move on a little bit further down the line. Because I know when I was in that position, I didn't want to hear that shit.
Exactly. You just want to get in there and get your shit.
Exactly. Hindsight's like, you know what you're talking about. You don't know. Whereas, I'm in that sort of situation now where it's like, oh, I do know. And I feel like I've kind of got the runs on the board now, like with promotions that I've done, shows that I ran, the experience, the way that I communicate it. It's all a rich tapestry of hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And when you broke in and started training though, like, is there anyone still involved in the business that started out at the same time training with you?
Shit. Chris Trance, I think he still comes up to Sydney to wrestle. I was backstage the other day and I walked in and Mike Burr was sitting there, who's another Victorian wrestler. Yeah, he's been around since 2002, but he left a couple of years ago. And I walked backstage and I saw him. And this is another guy that I've known for 16 years. So it's crazy, these relationships that you form with these people. You don't realize just how long you actually know them for. But like, yeah, people come and go, man. Sometimes the brightest flames burn the quickest. I saw one guy who I really liked and I thought had a really good head for it. Royce Chambers just announced the other day on his social media that he's stepping away. So it's really bizarre. Sometimes it's the people, that the brightest flames burn the quickest. So, not everybody I started with back then is still around today. But you still have those bonds when you see them.
Oh, 100%. I think that's the bond of obviously what you guys do in the ring and what you've gone through.
Trusting each other in the ring.
Yeah, exactly. And the training is not an easy process either. And I can imagine someone like Lobo would have been a very traditional trainer as far as, seeing who really wanted it.
Yeah, I think one day we got in there and I think he chopped the absolute shit out of me. Because I started PWA in Melbourne and there was this big leaning towards, strong style.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing back then. Like everybody was just strong style. So yeah, like they would legit beat the absolute dog shit out of you. Like just constantly, just you'd have the shit beat out of you. And it took me years to work that out of my system where I thought like that was just how you do it. And then after a little while I go, you know what? It's Tuesday. My match was on Saturday and I'm still fucking beat up.
Yeah, like there's no need for me to kick the shit out of myself.
There's got to be a better way to do this. And since I sort of made that adjustment, I think like the wrestling's been better. It's the crowd's been more involved in it because you can buy into it. And if you want to go watch two people beat the dog shit out of each other, go watch UFC. But that was how I broke in. And there was a few times awkward moments where you kind of get conditioned to that. And I remember I was wrestling one guy who used to he was stiff with me all the time. And I got in the ring with him and I was so green and young, I thought, well, that's just what we got to do. So I worked really stiff with him back. And then when we got backstage, he chewed me out in front of everybody, just yelled at me for being stiff. And I didn't understand. I thought this is what we were doing. I thought,
you thought this is how the match is going to be.
Yeah, I thought that was how the match was going to work. But obviously, you've got to, there's the difference between working stiff in safe places. And I didn't make that. I didn't make that connection because, like, you got guys who are, like me, we're wrestlers, right? We're show wrestlers. We're tough because we've got to be tough, and we're tough because like this really, really fucking puts you through it. There's a difference between being tough and being able to take it, and being tough who's like somebody can actually dish it out. Like on our show in Victoria, we've got a guy named Lucas Daniels who was a national champion kickboxer. Now I could stiff this guy all day long. I guarantee you he's not going to fucking notice. And if he wants to turn it on, he would have me in a second,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. It's like when you hear like stories of guys trying to shoot each other in the ring, it not only puts guys at risk, but it also exposes the business because, all right, say for example, two guys in the third match decide to start shooting on each other and one guy just throws a punch, bang, and this guy drops like a sack of shit. Every punch that has been thrown that night, every audience member is going to question.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen it before. There was a show in Melbourne a couple of years ago. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but it was the main event, and the very first spot, the guy threw a really stiff clothesline and just completely knocked out his opponent, and that was the main. That was the main event. Thanks for coming, folks. We'll see you later. So it's you got to find that fine line, don't you? Yeah, exactly. You can't come back from that. It's just. But like accidents happen and shit happens, but it's more or less it's like the sort of consistency, I suppose. If you got that respect and you're looking after people, and and if you do fuck up, own it and just say it, But like it's there's a lot of bravado in wrestling, isn't there?
There definitely is. But when you said own it, like let me ask you this: is there a lot? Have you seen guys that have like obviously potatoed someone or something's happened and then they've gone, no, I didn't do that, and just like denying that doing it?
Yeah, of course, all the time. Yeah, I've seen that before. Generally, but I laugh sometimes because sometimes you'll be in the ring and somebody will just stiff the shit out of you and you'll go, what the fuck? Like, what just happened? And I'll pull you in and there's like a giggle from them like, shit, I'm so sorry. And what can you do? You can't hold on to it. You kind of just got to move on, So like I appreciate those ones, and those ones are funny.
Have you ever had to give someone a receipt though?
Yeah, but it wasn't like one of those, beat my chest type of things. It was just more or less they were just being really stiff, and as they were pulling me up, I just gave them one in the stomach. There was another time I'm scared of snakes. I am absolutely petrified of snakes. And the guy, his gimmick was he came to the ring with a snake and he walked straight up to me with his fucking snake. And I was just sitting there like frozen solid, but like I wasn't going to back down or anything like that. I wasn't. I was not going to. I was just like, but he knew that I was scared of snakes, so he was trying to get over and trying to fuck with me with his snake, right? And being the young guy I wasn't going to sell it. So I'm in the corner of this ring with this guy's got the snake like right up near my face, and I'm just shitting my pants, and I didn't know what to do. As soon as the bell rang, I just fucking thumped him. Piece of shit.
Oh, you knocked out the snake Roberts.
No, no. But the thing was, if I could go back in time, if you come to me with a snake, I would have like, got the fuck over myself and jumped out of the ring and sold the fucking snake.
And especially if you're the heel, then you sell the fucking snake, right? Like you're the chicken shit. Fuck.
Heel or baby face, just sell the fucking snake. You gotta be willing to like get a little bit of, like show a little bit of ass.
Oh, mate, at the end of the day, it's a fucking snake. Like I wouldn't be working anything. I'd be literally running, fucking jumping over the top. I'd be like, I'm done, brother. You win the match.
So fucking random. I show up at this show. All right, cool. You're working with this dude. I'm like, yep, sweet, cool. I got all these ideas. Is that a fucking snake? Yeah, man, that's a snake. Yeah. But you can't tell all the guys. No. He had it was like The Grudge. So he used to wrestle in Melbourne called Candyman, right? Nice guy. Yeah, Dom. Really nice guy. I always got a lot of time for him. He was super fine with me, super over. So he changed up his gimmick and he became The Grudge, and he started painting himself all like dark and mysterious, had the long hair and all that sort of stuff. And somebody had a carpet snake. So it wasn't the toughest of snakes, but it was still a snake.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I had a lot of my first matches. I had a lot of my first matches with him, and it was funny because, like you go out there and you'd wrestle somebody else who's also young and green, and you do like everything. And I mean like frigging everything. And the crowd would, like make some noise. Yeah. This guy's gimmick when I first started was he would come out, called the Candyman, and he'd come out with a hat full of lollies. And he'd just throw that shit to the crowd. And the kids would go absolutely nuts. And then
good gimmick.
Throughout the rest, easy gimmick, man. And then throughout the rest of the match, the kids would just be going absolutely nuts. So you get to do all the fun stuff with the guys that you like, with the guys, like that you're also breaking in with. But then you work with this guy, and all of a sudden the crowd just comes alive. Whether it's the candy, like whether you say candy's like cheap gimmick or whatever. Once he had thrown the candy, once the bell rang, they were still invested. So you would have the hottest matches with him, with the crowd. Those were the matches the crowd would remember. But obviously, it took me like 10 years later to actually figure that out.
In a way, that's actually pretty good psychology, like a $4 bag of lollies to get some fucking, to get a good pop. Like,
we do it because I was the producer for Lucha Fantastica, and that's like a Mexican sort of cabaret wrestling show. So we get like the bags of Whiz Fizz and all that sort of stuff. You get the Whiz Fizz and you pretend to gimmick that sort of shit. And the crowd just goes absolutely nuts. And we got a guy out on the side of the ring. His name's Chico, and he has a bottle of tequila. And he's just basically giving people shots of tequila all night. And then when the bad guy comes out to challenge Chico, oh, my God, mate. The crowd, don't mess with Chico. They love
white meat baby face.
Yeah, the whitest of meat baby face, because he's not really a Mexican.
I love it. Please tell me he does like, ondale, come on. Like puts the accent on.
Yeah. That was the thing with those shows. I knew I can't speak Spanish. So I turned everything into a pantomime. It was just like a pantomime. Like an old school play, like where the bad guy would be sneaking up behind, that sort of shit. Yeah. And because the people that go to those shows aren't wrestling fans, they're like general audience, they eat that up. They love it.
Oh, 100%. But you were the booker and producer for that, for Lucha Fantastica, right? So how did that come to be for you? How did that opportunity present itself?
That was weird, man. I'm one of those guys, I don't know, like when you hear something that sounds interesting, exciting, you're like, fuck, we've got to do this. Yeah. So I got a call from Victor, who's the owner of the show. And Victor said to me, like, I couldn't understand him on the voicemail, but he's like, hello, Tommy, my name is Victor, I want to meet you. And I'm like, okay, cool. So So I said, all right, sweet, we've got a show this weekend, come down to the show. And he came down to the show and like we met each other and he seemed like a really cool guy. And he had this concept. He had he was selling wrestling masks at the market. Like not just like crappy wrestling masks. He would import them from Mexico and they're beautiful masks, right? And he was also like a DJ. So he had these two things going on. He was organizing like, dance parties and nightclub events and all that sort of stuff. And he thought, well, why don't we just do a wrestling show? So when the idea came to me, he had this idea for this, like a super serious wrestling event. And of course, me being me, I had this idea for this super campy cabaret wrestling event. So like, where everybody had a crazy character and everybody had everybody had a gimmick and everybody sort of worked that gimmick. So it sort of started, and when it started, it was absolutely debauchery. So like the first couple of years, like we had friggin', oh my God, we had paramedics at every other show, like with the audience. We had police walking through the venue. It was just total chaos. We had burlesque dancers. We had circus performers. We had the live music. It was insane. It was absolutely.
Sounds like the ultimate carny experience, man.
It was, but to put that in perspective, we were also selling like over 600, 700 tickets per show for these shows. Wow. So yeah, exactly. So they were just these insane shows, and then we kind of fell into a groove, and I was like, okay, cool. So we started creating characters for the show. Like as I said, we created Chico, and he's like sort of like a butler. So in between the show, he stands there, he smiles, he nods, he pours everybody shots of tequila. He's a sympathetic baby face, who's just there to serve the crowd. Basically, he's the butler. One of my favorites was Kung Fu Jesus. So Kung Fu Jesus was like one of my favorite creations, and the whole deal with him was there's a suburb in Melbourne called Heidelberg West, and Heidelberg West, it just looks like the ghetto, right? It's just a shitty little suburb, not too far out of the city, but they've got like a taekwondo thing there, like above the shops there on the main road. And it's like iconic. Everybody who drives past there knows, they've never been in there, but they just know this place. And I just thought, like, wouldn't it be funny? Like, so Jesus, he when he was crucified on the cross, it's not like he didn't come back. He came back, but he's been fucking training in Heidelberg West. He's been training in his dojo for the last 2,000 years, waiting to get his revenge. Now he's Kung Fu Jesus. So. And we made him really, really, because I find something hilarious about the Australian accent. So we made it really, really, really ochre. Like, g'day, Kung Fu Jesus at your service. So that's perfect. Kung Fu Jesus, Cupid, the werewolf. So with the werewolf, we didn't make him stereotypical werewolf. We made him like that sort of, werewolf that wants to fetch sticks and if you scratch his belly, he'll fall on the ground and start kicking his legs. That sort of stuff.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Give me heavy shit. I love it. Yeah.
And we've had some amazing wrestlers come through and do these characters. It's just been wild. Like the original Chico was Mitch Waterman, and he's the MCW champion now. So there you go. There you go. Royce Chambers was the alien, so from Area 41 or whatever it was, that gimmick. Man, it's just so much. I was Gringo Starr. So Gringo Starr was sort of like the Dr. Frankenfurter of from Rocky Horror Show type of wrestler. So his gimmick was that he's been wandering the world since he was kicked out of his Mexican village after the great pregnancy epidemic of 2015.
I love this shit. I love it. That's brilliant.
They come out with the rose, and you go to present the rose to somebody in the crowd, and then you'd stop and go, and as they're looking at you, you point at them, and then you just sort of shoo them to the side and give it to the person behind them. That sort of stuff.
I like it. But you know what? That highlights such an amazing part of what professional wrestling is, and I think a reason why a lot of people fall in love with the business is the over-the-top characters and the uniqueness of it. Like from what you're explaining, very similar to like a Jakara sort of style with very gimmick heavy, which is sort of out of left field type of gimmick, which is really
Lucha Vavoom for people listening in America.
Yeah.
I just love that over the top thing. Like you're gonna go see a show, you wanna remember the characters, you know. You don't wanna, like, one of our most over characters was Donald Trump Jr. it was just a guy, he wasn't much of a wrestler or anything like that. He didn't need to be. He could talk. He painted his face orange. He has the thing, like, and he used to have some epic battles with Chico. It was just so much fun. But like the difference between the shows, like those shows and like normal wrestling shows, is like the people who come to those shows, it's not like your typical wrestling audience. It's like men and women dressing up. So like they're dressed up to the hilt, and they're out there to have a fantastic night. So it's not like we never got wrestling fans to come to the show, but we'd still sell like, over, like 300-400 tickets for these events, like just consistently. So it's I don't know.
I think they're probably easier shows to put on wrestling wise as well, because those kind of fans, like for lucha shows, are really just, they want to see some high flying, couple of high spots, and some entertainment more than, you know what I mean, like technical. Yeah. Like if two people got in there and had the most amazing technical chain wrestling match, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" They wouldn't get it. Yeah.
But like people would come backstage and you'd be like, and you go, "Oh my god, what was the pop? What was the pop?" And he said, "Oh, I just gave him a body slam." And the crowd just goes nuts. And you'd be backstage and you hear the room shake from the crowd. And you're like, "What happened?" "I did a body slam." "Oh shit."
I actually rung it out to the Lucha show like a couple of weeks back, and like I try and get the whole crowd hyped up and stuff, so I'm doing the whole thing, and like as usual, I'll go, "This next one fall," and I'll pause for that, like it's usually they get the crowd involved, and there was just like fucking radio silence.
Yeah,
and like some guy goes, "Fucking get on with it."
Oh man, you gotta learn their language. It's all experience, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
But we did a spot one match, and it was me versus a guy dressed up as a gimp, and we called him El Twinko. So he come out, he had the mask with a zip on it, he had the tape with the nipples, the nipple with a, you know what I mean? He had the tassels, like the whole end of the match was I thought, fuck it, we're just gonna do this. End of the match, we're gonna fall in love and we're gonna kiss. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So we recreated the last scene in Ghost where the referee, we all crashed in the corner and the referee fell on the ground on his ass. I fell on my knees behind the referee. Yeah. And then the gimp comes behind me, revs up the crowd, clicks his fingers, and then they start playing Unchained Melody from Ghost. And he puts my hands on the referee's head, and we start doing that, molding the thing. Then we get up, we slow dance, we kiss, the whole crowd comes alive. I choke slam him and I win. And it's exactly, exactly. That's what people remember. Exactly. Like wrestling can be in those situations whatever you want it to be. On a normal wrestling show, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't. You just would not do that.
That would not go over, brother.
No, fuck no. Know your audiences. Like Tommy Hellfire wouldn't do that. It's about stepping into the character and the environment. The lucha environment was just this wild cabaret, over the top wrestling type of stuff. Whereas say if we're going to go back to like the actual Tommy Hellfire character, it's nothing like that at all. It's this super serious sort of, like no remorse sort of hard-hitting sort of guy that's takes his time and will dissect things. And but that's also part of it too, because like when I step in there, I believe what I'm doing, and you portray that, and like you're not going to go a million miles an hour in a fight. You're going to take your time. You're going to pull it apart. When you're stepping in there as like Gringo Star, well, I'm the sexiest guy in the room, and I'm gonna flaunt that shit.
Impressive. Yeah, exactly. But
Exactly.
it sounds like it's two different complete characters that you've got there, and obviously having the Ringo Starr character, and then the Tommy Hellfire character, which is a complete polar opposite, which is like this allows you to go out be like the HBK style of babyface, but over here you can then sort of be that dark evil motherfucking heel that's just gonna like put a world of pain on some bitch. You know what I mean? So it gives you that opportunity of that outlet to get to both sides of the fence out there, I think.
Exactly. And I'm also like, it's weird because I've been a career heel basically all my wrestling career. Like I've always been a heel. But then obviously, I went away, filmed a certain TV show, and then you got to come back and then you got to change your perspective again. Okay, cool. Well, that's not how I'm seen anymore. I know how I see me. But this is how the audience sees me. So I need to step into that now. You know what I mean? So you've always got to grow. You can never sit still. And that's, like the guys with the longevity are the ones that, don't force new shit down your throat, but they're the ones that grow into these new roles and grow into these new dynamics.
Evolving in the business. And I always say, like, I put the comparison to Chris Jericho and Dave. Like I always say, Chris Jericho was like the Dave Grohl of professional wrestling because he's been cool for 30 fucking years and you can't deny it. You know what I mean? Like
he'll always be cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you have to have that level of being able to evolve as a performer, and able to sort of stay relevant, but also keep yourself fresh as well. But you mentioned going into a certain reality TV series, and you've done some acting before, you did some commercials before. The reality TV series Married at First Sight, one of Australia's most watched television series. What was the motivation? The most. What was the motivation for you to go on that show?
Well, I thought there was going to be like a title run for me at the end of it.
Get a shot at the belt.
Yeah, I was going to get a shot at the belt. No, it's one of those things. Like as I said, you hear me talk about stuff. I'm like incredibly passionate about what I do and everything I do, and that's the same with relationships in my life. So every relationship I've ever had has never been a passive, boring relationship. It's always been this over-the-top sort of adventure. Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. Well, let's go on this adventure and let's see where it sort of, takes us. So I went on that show as another form of like, hey, let's, crossed. I've toured China, Japan, Singapore, all of Australia. This is just another natural progression for me in my life. So I half filled in an application form, and then they sort of headhunted me from there. So I didn't even finish the application form, and then they kept emailing me, and I didn't respond. And then eventually they actually called me and said, "Hey," so it was weird. They wanted the Tommy Hellfire image and character, but as I said, I've got to believe what I'm doing. And if I'm one of those people, if I don't believe what I'm doing, then you're not going to get that from me. So Tommy in context works on the wrestling show, and I step into it. And, like 1 minute I'll be like, backstage just laughing and joking. And the next minute, we'll be in it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the Gringo Star. I step into it. So I think they kind of felt like they were getting the Tommy character, or or somebody that kind of ilk, but it's just not me as a human. So as an actual person. So like when they first started talking to me, that's what they're sort of expecting. But as time went on, I can't keep that shit up. In context of work. So they kind of got to know Anthony the person. So in a way, it's been a little bit liberating in a way. They're like, people know that like there is an actual human being behind that, because I got a lot of hate in wrestling over the years because, as you would know, you got to defend yourself. You always walk around with your back against the wall because somebody's going to fuck you on something. Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to try and steal a venue off you, steal a spot off you, talk shit about you, all that sort of stuff. So you've always got your back up. And that's just been me in wrestling. So in the sense that, like, with the Married at First Sight stuff, it's been quite liberating because it's improved my relationships backstage with people tenfold, because people kind of feel like they saw me in a different light. Like, I am somebody you can talk to. I'm not the big bad wolf all the time. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I went on there for an adventure, and boy, howdy, did I get an experience. But, you know, like, things work out the way they do, and, you know, here we are.
Oh, like, I mean, as far as the experience overall, like, did you find it enjoyable? Is it something, if you had your time over again, would you do it again?
Oh, I would never say I wouldn't do it again. But, like, if I went in there with hindsight, then I wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
You know, like if I never did it, I would have been kicking myself for the rest of my life, thinking, what if I didn't do it? Because I've always seen myself, like, in wrestling, and as you said, with the movies and all that sort of stuff, like a bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm always there, and I'm always, you know, in the mix and all that sort of stuff. But you never, you know, like, you never really feel like, you know, like, hey, this is my moment or anything like that. You kind of feel like, all right, cool. This week's my moment. That week's my moment. Okay, cool. This is the storyline. We're moving from this to that to this to that. You know, the wrestling life.
Yeah.
You're never in the moment. You're always, you know, thinking, you know,
What's
4 or
next?
5 shows down the line, basically. Okay, so if we do this week, this is going to lead to that next week. Whereas with the Married at First Sight stuff, that's like all out of your hands, like 100% out of your hands. Like, you film that shit, and then it's not actually shown until like 6 months later or like 4 months later. So
And then you relive, like, the negatives and the
yeah. So you kind of live in the you kind of get to learn to appreciate it for the moment that it is, I suppose. Whereas in wrestling, yeah, it's a different vibe. It is a much different vibe. You're in control with wrestling. With mafs, you don't get to choose the edit or anything like that. So,
yeah, and that's the hardest thing. Like, I think where, some of the things I was reading, how some people saying, I don't like the way that I was portrayed on this show. And for someone like me, it's like, well, you would have had to have eventually put something like that out there for them to capture.
Yeah.
Like,
don't sign the contract, basically. We all put ourselves there, and it's one of those things. At the end of the day, it's like a wrestling show. If a promoter sees you in a certain way, they're going to book you that way. So you do your days shooting, you do all that sort of stuff. They make notes, they send it off to the editors, and it has to be consistent, otherwise it won't make sense. So your behavior is consistent the whole way through. Like, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. They couldn't patch that shit together even if they tried. You know, like, if I went out there and did a mic spot and basically, you know, went out there and, you know, oh, cool, we want you to say this, or this is a situation you're in, go out there, do a mic spot, and I go out there and, you know, tell the people in the front row, hey, get fucked. You know, what do you think people are going to remember? So exactly. So you've kind of got to, I don't know, I suppose with wrestling and all that sort of stuff, I'm kind of used to having a camera pointed in my face. So but for me, it's always been a character, but they did a really good job of getting me to break that character. And I was lucky. They saw a human being under all of that. You know, they knew how to, get me going. They'd ask me questions about my daughter. They'd ask me questions about my life. And
things you care about.
Things I care about. Yeah, exactly. Things in real life. And I'm the same in real life with wrestling. I can't fake it. That's just me as a person. You know, if I'm going out there to wrestle, I'm Tommy, if you ask me about my life as Anthony, well, you know, and you start talking about my daughter, I'm going to get all cooey and I'm going to get all, you know, lovey-dovey. Yeah. She comes to all the wrestling shows, or a lot of them, and she sits in the crowd and you can hear her, you know, like, go daddy, and you'll hear like all the other kids in the crowd will be booing me and all that sort of stuff, but she just will not boo me. She just
You can't get heat with your daughter, man. I love it.
I can get heat with my daughter.
Yeah. But not when you're working.
No, the other day we were at the park with my daughter, myself, and my partner, and she didn't want to be walking around the park and got the shits. So me and her are just like button heads.
How old is your daughter? How old is your daughter?
She's 10.
Oh wow, yeah.
10,
I got a 4-year-old man. I got a 4-year-old daughter, and I know the feeling.
Yeah, enjoy it, mate. Every moment's like, because you look back at photos, and like 1 minute she's this little ball, and she's falling asleep on your chest, and then the next minute, she's like a full she's like a full human, and you're like, what?
And get fucked, Dad. Fuck you.
No, I've never heard her swear, which is funny because I swear all the time, but she's never said fuck.
Oh, dude, I got 3 kids, and like my eldest is 6 now. When he was like 3, he actually started dropping F-bombs in context. And it was like and eyes just immediately went to me, just going, "What the fuck do you say around your kid?"
Yeah, I wonder where that came from.
Yeah. Hey, man, at least he was able to say it in context. I said, "Smart kid, he gets it. He just gets it."
I remember this when I was a kid. My dad would say something, and I'd think it was so funny. I just couldn't wait to tell everybody what he said. So my dad is always walking around with his, like proverbial foot in his mouth because, kids repeat shit. So I knew, hindsight, I was never going to make that same mistake. So around my daughter, I don't say anything about no P's, no Q's, no nothing. Because the last thing I want is her to go back to her mum's and said, "Oh, you want to hear Dad's, opinion on politics?"
Yeah, smart move, man. Smart move. You keep that shit kayfabe from the kids for sure.
Wrestling, mate, always working.
Exactly. That's a worker's mindset right there. Always staying on the ball, man. But
exactly.
As far as coming in, to that mafs experience, like I always think, like, coming in from being a single dude or a single person, and then being like in an instant, you're just around someone 24/7. It was that like a massive change. Like, how much of a shock to the system was that for you?
I don't know. It wouldn't have been a shock to the system if we liked each other, I suppose. But we just didn't get along. I think that was the nooks and cranny of it. But I can't say too much about it. But I don't know. I'm used to being in relationships. Seem to be, because I just find comfort in that. I like having people around me. I like having good people around me. People that bring something to my life and all that sort of stuff. So being in a relationship and being around somebody, I'm 0 to 100. So I'm either in a relationship or I'm not in a relationship, all that sort of jazz. So it was bizarre. It was weird because you're supposed to be in this sort of relationship, but you're not actually just together. Like, there's other people with you all around you. So it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be like in this weird little bubble of like they even I think they called it an experiment, right? Like that was the whole gimmick of the show. Like it really is an experiment. Like it's almost like you seeing human. Sorry,
it's an experiment. Like it's sports entertainment.
Yeah, like it's almost like seeing rats in the wheel, almost like with that sort of thing. Like whenever you see like a reality show where there's like restrictions, you can't see your parents, you can't, or your family or anything like that.
That was the hardest thing, man. That was the hardest thing, right? I didn't see my daughter for a couple of months, and when I came back to her, man, I cried like a baby when I saw her. It was such an emotional thing. Like, we surprised her, so she didn't know that I was coming back, and she didn't know she was coming back, and then her mum actually filmed it. So she said, "Close your eyes, we've got a surprise for you." And when she opened her eyes, I was standing there. So it was super exciting. So my daughter was there, and her dog, she's got a tiny little puggle whose name's Princess Cupcake. So Gabby,
I love it.
Princess, Tommy Hellfire walking around with a dog named Princess Cupcake, eh?
With the little pink leash.
Yeah, she's got the pink leash. She's got the pink leash and the little floppy poppy ears and all that sort of stuff. It's so contrast.
Tommy Hellfire, man.
What's that?
I said that's a new gimmick for Tommy Hellfire. Bring out the dog, man. Like,
Tommy Puppy Fire.
yeah, exactly, man. It could be things could have been more stranger, but as far as wrestling now for you, like, are you wrestling minded now, like trying to travel as much as you can, or are you just trying to like say, hey, you know what, I'm happy in Victoria, I want to stay here and work the scene here, or is traveling sort of on your radar?
Traveling, it's weird for me because like wrestling, I've always had like a finger in sort of one pie or another, where I've kind of got to the certain point in my life where I don't want to do any more producing. I've had my time producing. We've got a really talented group of people that have taken over at Lucha Fantastica. We've taken over virtually what I was doing. Sid Parker, who's a good friend of mine, he took over that role and he's doing fantastic. So I don't have any interest in producing anymore. So I just love being around the boys and still working. So when the phone rings for somebody, around Australia, then as I said, I came to Sydney, had conversations. I've been doing lots more shows around Melbourne. I'm always open to doing that. But I'm also one of those people that I do see my home is PCW in Melbourne, because a couple of years ago I thought wrestling was over for me. Like I was kind of burnt out. My name in the scene was mud for whatever reason. I sold out of my wrestling company and I went to PCW and I said, hey, I want to work. Can we work something out? And they took me on. That was 4 years ago, just gone 4 years ago, and because of that, I've got a bond with the owners there, with Steve, with Ken, with Shane, and they've always just sort of looked after me. They've always been there for me over those 4 years when I had like down moments, up moments, all that sort of stuff. They've been there for me the whole way through. So essentially with me, that's my home base, and I feel really happy and really sort of comfortable there, so I'm taking on other shows here and there, but for me, that's always going to be home.
Yeah. And PCW, man, like such an amazing group of talent that you guys have coming out of that.
Yeah.
Well, like it's just like I'm always seeing
Victoria.
Sorry?
They're feeding Victoria.
Yeah, man. Well, a lot of them are popping up all over Melbourne, so I think Melbourne particularly, I think Melbourne and Sydney are probably the two hottest places in Australia where Australian wrestling is, but even Australian wide right now, like there's companies that are popping up and putting on just amazing shows.
Well, you got your consistent ones, man. I think it's just generally the consistent ones. You've got your EPW in Perth, Riot City Wrestling, and Rampage, yep. Because they had a different name, so that's how old I am. Wrestle Rampage in Adelaide, they're both doing great things. Melbourne, you've got a lot of companies, but I think it's more or less, like your PCWs, your MCWs. Like Sydney, as you know, you've got your PWAs and, obviously the, AWEs and all that sort of stuff, like that are doing consistent shows and bringing people through. So there's good talent everywhere and there's great shows everywhere. But PCW, with their production, with the backstage environment, these young guys that are willing to learn, willing to work and all that sort of stuff. And, and they're also able to get out of PCW and experience the rest of the scene and learn how to work and learn how to,
get the exposure and how to present yourself.
If you're working in front of the one audience, then you're always going to be conditioned to the one audience, like every now and then, as JR always says on his thing, or I think it's Bruce Pritchard or somebody like that, they say on their podcast, go away, learn a new hold. And that's what's great about PCW is these boys are getting out because they're talented and they've got it in them. Guys like with the group of guys in PCW, and I'll mention a few, but just in case I accidentally leave a couple of out. But your Robbie Thorpes, your George Kendos, your Thomas Crows, your JJ Furnos, your Castones. There's just so many good talent there that are starting to get that recognition and starting to sort of build their brand. And they did it starting at PCW, and now they're sort of stepping out,
breaking their way into other other companies, I should say. Sorry,
I saw that with Royce Chambers. I said he was moving around everywhere. He even he went to Japan for a few months because they just wanted him. So it's this amazing little scene that we've got going on there. So I love it, and I can't talk highly enough about it. And it's backstage. It's one of those things where everybody's on even footing. First match to last match.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you can have a roster that's stacked like that, that you can slot anyone into any particular spot on any card.
Yeah. And everybody knows each other, everybody trusts each other, and everybody's willing to work with each other. There's no bullshit. Oh, this person's winning, that person's winning, blah blah blah. So it's been home for me, and and I would be foolish not to mention my tag partner of the last 3 years as well, Johnny Del Rocco. He was one of those guys, because I feel like when they put us together, he's kind of the joke backstage was that he was like my doppelganger. Like he was just like a shorter version of me, because we both had that beard and the Italian sort of thing. So they just kind of threw us together in a tag team, and I was like, well, I'm not having this. We can't just be a tag team because we look like like we've got to make this something. And so I sort of came up with the whole concept of because we both look Italian. You can see over here, this is my house, by the way. I live alone, so don't judge me. But there's my signed Rambo poster on the wall there.
Oh, that's awesome. That is full Italian.
Fucking epic, isn't it? So I was a massive Sylvester Stallone fan. I always saw a lot of similarities, like the journeyman story that I feel like I had with my life, and say the first Rocky movie. Not the rest of them, because he was a superstar in those ones, but it was like that. There's a journeyman mentality of the first one. So I thought, well, if we're going to be stuck together and we're going to make something of this, so we created our tag team called the Stallones. And
I love it.
So for the last few years, me and Johnny Del Rocco, or Steve, we've been living large and that, and he's starting to branch out of PCW as well. He's doing a lot of the lucha shows, and people starting to see him for the talent that he has. So it's I can't speak highly enough of the place, and just how much I love being there.
Just to go back, you mentioned before you were in a bit of a crossroads within the business. You said your name had been dragged through the mud. What had actually happened there? Like, was there a reason or something that you felt that way, or was it just something in your head, or was it something that happened?
No. Basically for me was, and I'll explain from like my situation and how I was feeling at the time. I'm not going to say how other people were and all that sort of stuff, sure. Because their story is their story to tell. I can only tell you how I felt. So with me, I'd taken on a lot of responsibility. And as like wrestling takes time out of your life. So, like I was missing time with my daughter. I was setting up the shows, packing down the shows, doing all the networking for the shows, like talking all the business with the shows. And eventually it just got to the point where, like it was just too much for me, and I was completely overwhelmed, and I didn't really get the support. All I got was, I felt like, people sort of actively working against me in a way. And as I said before, like you walk around with your back up against the wall, and like this is lessons I took into my life, into mafs as well. Like I don't want to be that guy that suffers in silence and then just explodes, like, because it doesn't do anything for you. It just creates, more distension, more angst and more all that, like stuff. So I would lash out. I would take all this shit and just pile it up. And then eventually I would explode. And then when you do explode, people have that, haha, we told you moment about you without actually realizing, hey, this guy hasn't properly seen his daughter in weeks. He didn't, he's got all this stuff going on. Like, why don't we help him instead of, like sort of push him down a little bit? So it got to the point
instead of blacklist him, try and support him.
Yeah. So, and especially like when there's business involved and there's actual real money at stake and people who don't have an actual stake in that money controlling, the way that you're doing your business. I wasn't interested in that. So basically it got to the point, especially at the MCW, where I was changing by myself. So for the last 2 years, I didn't really have anybody backstage I could talk to, I could be in touch with. So I would virtually get my bags, get there, find a quiet spot in a different locker room or a different end of the building, and I would just get changed by myself. And it was a horrible, lonely, very isolating feeling. It was virtually like a dinner party in a way. So I would just go there and I would change by myself. The only support I had was the ring crew, because they were my boys. Like we went up and down the road together. We would work together. We were all on the same page. But then when it came to the actual wrestling show, I didn't have that camaraderie backstage anymore. I just get told something happened. Oh, Tommy said this, or Tommy said that, or Tommy did this, or Tommy did that. And there was no sort of trust backstage. There was no sort of, it was just incredibly isolating, and it was incredibly, hurtful every show. Like I just felt like I had my back against the wall, and I would show those cracks and I would get upset, and, I'd become very standoffish with people, very angsty, and eventually something had to give, and it was me. I left. So I left, and then that sort of heat sort of followed me to other places. I'd, get in touch. Hey, I want to come and work. And then it would be like that. Oh, you can't work with him because he's like this or because he's like that. You know what I mean? So like people had already cast a judgment on me before they actually met me. And as I said, the Tommy Hellfire thing is this whole polarising thing. And ever since then, like you've seen me on mafs, you actually know Anthony, the person, is a world away from that Tommy character. So in a way, I think like that whole mafs experience got people to see me, like in a different light. So, I know people are always, not happy with edits and all that sort of stuff. And, there was a few things in there I was like, a little bit, but like at the same time, I felt like that's me. That's always been me. And I didn't want to take that angst with me onto a show like that. So you've got to reflect and you've got to learn to move on with your life. And that's sort of, what I had to do. And that's why I left.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you need to leave and walk away from it. Is, man. It is. But you know what? Sometimes you need to walk away from stuff like that, and you need to make yourself right. And, we mentioned earlier, Royce Chambers, deciding to make it to step away. And man, if he's not feeling right mentally, and as you were at that time as well, not really mentally there, like I think you need to step away from it. And I think professional wrestling is something that is so demanding, both physically and mentally,
emotionally too. Because like, we all have and we all have that pride of ownership, like we all want ourselves to be seen in a certain light, so you'll fight back on this, you'll fight back on that, and you'll go hard. And then it gets exhausting because your perception of you isn't necessarily everybody else's perception of you. Like sometimes you might think, hey, I belong up here, but the person, but the person you're working with or the person who's paying you says, no, I just need you here. You know what I mean? And that can be a bit of a blow. It can be a little bit of a, but it's all part of the experience. Whereas with that emotional roller coaster, it was the same with Lucha. Towards the end of Lucha, my run in Lucha, I was emotionally sort of burnt out. I was hanging in there, and I felt like any minute this is going to turn around, but I just wasn't feeling the same. Because you remember, like the start of the conversation when we were talking about it, I was all up and like this is I've still got that fire. I've still got those memories
Yeah.
when I talk about it. I've still got that passion. But like as far as creating new memories and all that sort of stuff, I was tapped. I was absolutely tapped. But like the good thing about lucha was when I left, I felt that huge relief, and I felt like that sense of completion. Like, hey, my journey came to an end here. I was able to pass it on to somebody else. So now they've got an opportunity to, you know, live the life that I've lived with it. And I feel good about it. And it's one of those things that sometimes it's hard to let go, but when you let go, you know, things move forward. You know, whether it's, you know, like a job that you're hanging on to, or a relationship that you're sticking with, or something, you know, like, or as you said, you know, like those wrestling gigs, you know, like you get to that point in your life where if you learn to sort of cut them off, life, you know, like life operates better, you know, like you get yourself in a good place, you know, like a good place work wise, and a good place wrestling wise, a good place home wise. And that's because, you know, I was willing to walk away from the things that weren't working for me.
Yeah, and like I said, sometimes you need to take that break to put it into perspective for you as well, to really be able to understand, okay, do I really love doing this? Is it something that I miss? Do I miss not being around it? Yes, I do. Okay, then slowly start gradually putting that back in. And
Yeah.
I think as well, like, you know, when you are playing a different character, when you're going and you're putting on a show like you are when you perform as a professional wrestler as well, I think that even then, like, if you're going through emotional distress and everything else in your personal life, going out and playing a character can sometimes be even more like mentally exhausting for you than going on and having a 40-minute match.
It can, but for me, you know, and I get what you mean. Like that's why, like with me with the wrestling, when I had all those responsibilities out, you know, like attached to the show, my mind when I was out there wrestling would be anywhere but where it needed to be. But without all those added responsibilities at a show, like with the life outside of it, it sucks, and it's a hard one to juggle. I like nowadays, without all those added responsibilities and that sort of clear conscience, when I step through the ring, when I step through that curtain, I step right into it, and there's something so beautiful about it. You know, like you've got yourself this blank canvas, and it's literally a canvas. You have blank canvas. Your ring is your match is your paintbrush, and the crowd is, you know, like you know, it's
The hands. No,
exactly.
actually, not the hands. Yeah.
Yeah, you're painting a picture in there, and the crowd is, you know, the crowd is the muse. You know, you're leading them through this picture that you're painting, and sometimes you need that. You know, sometimes you need that escapism from life, and you need to be able to sort of, you know, take that crowd on that emotion. If you had a shit day and you're a heel, take that crowd on that thing, make them feel what you feel. You know, like if you're, and you can do that, you know, with your actions, with your tone. You don't need to come out and yell at the crowd, you shut up, you shut up, you shut up, because that shit's old. If you get out there and
can't get around and go, fuck you, I've had a hell of a day.
yeah. Who the fuck are you? yeah. You can't do that. But like if you step into those feelings and you portray that, you know, like before I go out to do the Gringo Star, you know, like backstage, you know, I'm fucking psyching myself. I'm the sexiest guy in this room. When I get out there, you know, I'm owning it with the Tommy Hellfire thing. You know, if I had a bad day, you know, it's harder to step into that character when I've had a good day. So yeah, if you had a bad day, then it's easier to step into that character, because like your tone, your manner, your everything, you know, as I said before, you can't fake that shit. If you've got that with you, yeah, you can bring that to the crowd, and you can make them, you know, feel that anger towards you, because that's what you're projecting. That's what's inside of you. And I love the artistry of that, you know, the artistry of, you know, like having a crowd come with you, not the crowd dictating to you by chanting, this is awesome, or you deserve it, or all that sort of stuff, because they're taking over. You don't want them to take over. You want them to be sort of lost in what you're doing. You know what I mean? So like when it happens, they react.
That's the thing I always say is, like, when I sit down and watch wrestling now, like I watch it in a different lens, obviously, But even now, like I could still catch myself sitting there watching a match. Like I review NXT every week, and I watched the match. I think it was Cameron Grimes and Carmelo Hayes or something. These two it was a really good match. Like I sat there halfway through the match going, fuck, I need to be taking notes on this. And I'm like, and the only note was, this was good. It was able to get me. It was able to distract me enough to sit there and just be lost in that moment of enjoying what I was watching, where I wasn't thinking, I've got to write something down.
It's funny because you see the guys that will critique online and all that sort of stuff. They'll be in the crowd during the show with their head down, looking up, writing messages. They're not really engaged in what you're doing. It's the 200 other people that, buy the tickets. They're the ones that are engaged. They're the ones that, they're the ones that will actually drop the bullshit and come on the journey with you. So it's amazing, isn't it?
But those people that sit there and say and I love having arguments with these sort of people because I just find it easy to pick apart. They'll go, that person's a shit worker. And my first response is, tell me more, veteran.
Yeah, tell me more. Tell me more. Who did you ever see?
Or I simply just put it like, well, they were over. Oh, but they did this. But they didn't do this. They were a baby face. They got the reaction that a baby face would want. Oh, but who gives a fuck? They got the, you know what I mean? Like they got the reaction they want. They didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Win-win.
Yeah, no, it's the same with that Candyman character I was talking about at the start of the night. Like he had like a sort of similar thing backstage with everybody complaining that, he didn't want to lose. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do that. And eventually he got sick of that shit and he left. And when he left, so did the crowds, in these shows. The crowds just went, so everybody would still have their beautiful little wrestling matches and all that sort of stuff. But who to? Nobody cared. Yeah. So you need to be able to strike. You got to strike those balances. Everybody, you see all these, fucking lists and all that sort of stuff where they say Hulk Hogan was, this and that and this and that and this and that. It's like, well, Hulk Hogan's a millionaire and for bloody good reason,
100%. But that's the thing. Like even as far as what wrestling is and stuff like that, I think at the level that it's at, unless you're making millions and millions of dollars, politics doesn't need to come into something that people need to enjoy. But I think as well, like a lot of these, these fans that want to critique what they're watching and critique and understand it, they don't actually get the finer points of it. They don't understand what they're actually critiquing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so they're like virtually. It's like a movie critic. You know what I mean? Like it's like they see the moving pieces and all that sort of stuff, and it's without actually being backstage and being involved in it. And I'm also of the opinion without actually having money invested in it, like where you're actually playing for money. Like if you're just like a fan, if you're a wrestling booker and that's fine. That's all good, unless you're actually like, playing for real money, like, or unless you've actually got something on the table and something to actually lose. I get a little investment. Yeah, I get a little bit skeptical as well because, I could show up at somebody else's show and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. But, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, and magic, scene. Scene. And that's why like, with the Lucha Fantastica and all that sort of stuff, I wasn't paid per show. I made sure that my producing fees and all that sort of stuff was incentivized. So I wouldn't have a fixed rate. Everything was incentivized. Yeah. So that way there, if the show was doing shit, well then I'm not going to make money. They're not going to make money. Everybody's responsible. Everybody's got something to lose. And that's just the way I sort of see it in business, if you're going to be out there and, like critiquing and all that sort of stuff, you got to remember it's not your money you're playing with here. And if you really want to have an opinion, then put your cards on the table. Basically, that's. But then again, like everybody's gonna have an opinion. Everybody has to have an opinion. It's the people that need to put their opinion across with a little bit of grain of salt, I think, and be appreciative of like what people actually go through to get that show on the road for you.
Yeah, I mean, and that, like, a lot of people don't understand what goes into a show, like, on any level. And as I
Yeah.
said, they don't understand the
And
psychology of the business,
yeah,
and they just sit there and go, "Oh,
and and nor should they, because if everybody got it, then it wouldn't be special, So
you're taking the magic away, right?"
yeah, so sometimes when they have these conversations and they laugh and they joke about this sort of stuff, especially like I find when people, I'm talking with people, outside of your business, but like still involved in the business, they'll talk to you in a certain way, but it's not the same way that the boys talk to each other. It's a weird dynamic I've noticed, because they know what's going on, but they still don't have that same lingo. You know what I mean? Like there's a definite line between like the boys and
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when I'm at a show and whether I'm working doing a certain thing, I know my time when I need to go and ask you questions about your shit so I can do my job. I'm not going up to you when you're standing in the middle of the ring before a show going, right, so we're going to do this. Yeah. And then I'm not going to go, hey, man.
Maybe you should do this and maybe you should do that. Because if you told me maybe you should do this, I'd tell you maybe you should fuck off.
Yeah. But that's the thing, knowing your fucking place if you are in a backstage role, knowing to sit the fuck down and know when you're needed and when you're not needed.
Yeah, and I was working that show with you in Sydney against Blake Stone, and he's been around as long as I have. I'm not going to sit there and tell him fucking what's what. It's one of those things, Blake knows what he's doing. We'll just, shit, you want to do that? Yeah, cool. You know what you're doing, mate. It's, you know your role, you know your place, and all that. You make suggestions, cool. We put something together. But at the end of the day, it's about it's trusting each other and all that sort of stuff, and knowing your space. And when you're talking to people outside of it, because I'm so used to like that boys club sort of, not boys club, but like that locker room sort of vibe, which the girls are also involved in as well. But that whole locker room vibe, that's where I sort of thrive. So when you're talking to people who are kind of around wrestling, but not part of that locker room, backstage locker room culture, and it's guys and girls, I find there is a big disconnect between me and them, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's as it should be. Like it's the ecosystem, and everybody's got to feed the little ecosystem. Like the lion doesn't bother the hippopotamus, and vice versa.
100%, 100%. As I said, it's knowing your spot, when to sort of interject and when to say things and when to shut the fuck up. And it's, more people need to understand that way of thinking. But we have just gone past that 1 hour mark by about 17 minutes. But it is that time for 60 seconds with Piers. We are going to get this going. How this works is I'm going to fire a bunch of questions at Tommy, and he's going to answer as many as he can when I start the clock. He's got 60 seconds to go.
Is this general knowledge, or is this just like off the top of my head stuff?
This is just off the top of your head shit. Like, this is all stuff like your questions and like just random gimmick, funny, goofy shit.
Okay, so you're not going to ask me what year the French Revolution was or anything like that?
I think you're pretty safe in this one, brother.
All right, sweet.
All right. You ready to get started?
Fuck yeah.
All right. Favorite song to sing at karaoke?
Back in Black.
What sport did you play as a kid?
Cricket.
Go-to drink at a night out?
Vodka soda.
Would you rather the ability to read minds or move things with your mind?
Read minds, because you read minds and you can move people.
What is the last gift you received?
Oh, it's probably Easter eggs. Yeah, Easter eggs. Just past Easter. Yep.
What was the last show you recorded or downloaded?
Ooh, recorded or downloaded. Oh my God. I haven't done that in years. The last show I watched was Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, if that helps.
One has to go. Game of Thrones, Lord of Rings, or Harry Potter?
Ooh, Lord of Rings.
Favorite song to sing in the car?
Back in Black.
In 5 minutes, you are being shipped to outer space. What two personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
Excluding human beings, I would take my phone with Spotify, and I'd take a guitar.
There you go. That has 60 seconds with Piers. Tommy's just nailed it out. You know what? It's a great conversation when you can just look and go, shit, that's been an hour and 20 minutes already.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get you back on for a part 2 somewhere down the line if you're up for it, Tommy. But I think it's been a great conversation. Thank you for giving your time up on a Tuesday evening to come and shoot the shit with me. It's much appreciated. But where can everyone find you on social media, get some merch, and support Tommy Hellfire?
So on social media, you can find me on at tommyhellfire, or you can find me at Anthony Cincotta with a little dash underneath it. If you look up Anthony Cincotta, you'll find me, a big old handsome mug sitting there doing that. So find me on those channels. I'll be posting. I post regularly on my Tommy channel with shows that coming up. And with the Anthony channel, in the next few weeks, I'll be launching a few other little projects that I'm pretty excited about. So follow me on those ones.
There you go, guys. Make sure you follow Tommy on both of his profiles there at Tommy Hellfire and also Anthony Cincotta. Again, thank you very much for your time. Guys, make sure you check out our sponsors, healthfape.com and sleeps.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchases. Also, make sure you tune in for Nights of the Gimmick Table this week on Thursday. You won't want to miss it. Till then, we'll see you soon, and we'll take care, and we'll catch you then. Peace.